now ready for our final two speakers. So if you've had a look at the rejigged program, we've moved people around slightly just to accommodate what is going on in everyone's lives. So Kate's moved up the agenda slightly. So Kate's going to be our next speaker. And as I say, I've already had a sneaky look at her slides, and there's got some lovely images in, which I'm really excited to hear the context behind, particularly because the county that she works in is where my public library growing up was based. So I have lovely fond memories, as do many of us, I'm sure, of our own library as we were younger. So I'm really interested to hear about Kate's story about the experiences of Northumberland Libraries. So over to you.
Hi, hello everyone. For some reason, oh, there I am back where I'm meant to be. Hi everyone. I'm the local studies librarian for Northumberland, and I'm here to tell you more about a project we ran last year celebrating 100 years of the county library service. So in 2023, I was doing some research in our core reference collection, and I came across a document written by George Lawton, who was the county librarian in 1974. And he had written this document about 50 years of the county library service. And I realized that we were 1 year short of 100 years. So we decided to apply for funding from Arts Council England to run a project celebrating our century of stories. The project took on 4 elements. So there was an exhibition celebrating the history of our service. We then had oral history recordings. So we interviewed former staff, members of the public, and these recordings were then stored in Northumberland archives for future reference. We also held activities in libraries, and lastly, we had a theatre performance telling our story, which was really exciting. So to begin with, I just want to tell you a little bit about how we went about researching our history. Um, there, it was quite a nostalgic journey. We discovered all sorts of interesting things about our service, and we also got excited all the time about what we found. But yeah, it was really, really interesting overall. So first of all, we had we used. I just wanted to let you know what resources we used. So there was content in Northumberland archives that we were able to research, and it was there were lots of records from Northumberland County Council, lots of the records about the minutes from committee meetings. And then also there were photographs, there were letters, we had, there were library committees from the different libraries that were set up. We found information in newspapers, in old newspapers, and in books from our local studies collection. And then we also found information in the National Records of Scotland, all about the Carnegie United Kingdom Trust. So it all began when Northumberland County Council adopted the Public Libraries Act in August 1924. And the reason they did this was because the Carnegie United Kingdom Trust were offering these grants to all local authorities. And they said if you adopted the Public Libraries Act, then they would supply you with a grant. So that was where it all began for Northumberland County Council. And that was obviously where our research began. And as you can see, in this image here, we've got an extract from the first annual report of the County Rural Library. And on the right, we've got a letter from Mr. Williams, who was the then Director of Education, and he was acknowledging the Carnegie United Kingdom Trust grant. One of the most interesting things about our research was discovering more about the first county librarian. Ruth Evelyn Baker. She was one of 6 candidates shortlisted out of 69 applicants. And it was really interesting that she was chosen because, first of all, she was a woman, and this was 1924, remember. Also, she was only 28 at the time. But of all the 6 candidates, she was really well qualified. She had a BA English degree. Uh, she had honours actually as an English degree. She had a Board of Education teacher certificate, and she had a diploma in librarianship from the University of London. This was the first, as far as I'm aware, one of the first courses, librarianship courses that was actually offered, and she had undertaken that. So she was really well qualified. And then when we did a little bit of research into her family history, we discovered that her father was Ernest Albert Baker, and he was a librarian as well. And he had also written several publications. So Ruth began in February 1925, and her role was to set up library centres in the rural parts of the county. So this was where the service first began. And she had to go around and promote the service as well to the rural areas. So a library centre was very different to what we know as a pub, as a library. It was simply just a bookcase or a bookshelf. Some of them were set up in the women's institutes, some of them in village halls. The majority of them were set up in schools, and then they would be open once or twice a week, and there would be a volunteer librarian who was more often than not the school teacher. And then the library van would come around with books, and they were able to exchange the books and top up their stock. So by February 1926, 85 of these local library centres had been established. And then, yeah, as I said, the library van would come around and circulate the stock in that way. And Ruth Baker would actually ride on the library van as well. So even though it was quite a small selection of books, it was still extremely popular. And as you can see, in the first full year of the scheme, 1926, the total number of issues was 71,257. And then after 10 years of the library centres, this had increased to 467,884. This was in part also due to the expansion of the service, these library centres into the urban areas. After the war, they realized they needed to actually start setting up branch libraries because there was such a high demand. And together with the branch libraries, they started purchasing mobile libraries. This here is the, excuse me, is the first mobile library van purchased in 1951. It was affectionately nicknamed Bessie, and pictured in this photograph here. On the left is Ruth Baker herself, and this picture was taken outside County Hall in Newcastle upon Tyne. So the library van was really successful, and with that, they decided to purchase a second van for the north of the county, and this was to travel around visiting areas around Wooler. This was purchased in 1953, and pictured below here, interestingly, is the first mobile librarian on that particular van. And this is John Cunliffe. And John Cunliffe is the author of the Postman Pat series. And I've had the privilege of speaking to his wife. Unfortunately, John passed away in 2018. But his wife told me wonderful stories about their time there because she actually met John while she was living in Wooler. And when he arrived on the mobile van, she was most intrigued. And she said it was just such a wonderful experience to suddenly have these books available to them because she said they had absolutely nothing before. So she had very, very fond memories of that. We also had some other authors who were linked to libraries. We had John Brain, who was a librarian at New Biggin. and he wrote a book called Room at the Top in the 1960s. Then we had Sid Chaplin, who was a writer in residence in Morpeth. Um, and we also had Oliver Kilbert, who was the Pittman painter. He painted a series of paintings for the children's section in the Ashington Library in the 1960s. So these were all little bits and pieces of information we discovered while researching our content. This photograph here is taken at the retirement of Ruth Baker. And I've been able to interview two of the librarians who actually feature in this photograph. The one started working as a librarian in 1949, and she remembers Ruth well and just told us really interesting stories about her. Apparently, she was a card-carrying communist, which was quite interesting. She was also a chain smoker, and she used to drive around the county delivering books on a motorcycle, apparently. So, yes, quite an interesting character. The full exhibition was on display at County Hall in Morpeth for 6 weeks last autumn, and we ended up having a celebratory party, of course, with mandatory cake. So yes, that was all really good. And then the other part of the project I'd like to talk about is how we engaged with our users. We had a lot of activity in the individual libraries. There were parties for the children. We had a Lego building competition. Some of our knitting groups knitted us this at the top left there. There's a picture. They knitted a book cover for a book. And then we also had activity that extended county-wide. So we invited people to share memories of the library, and this particular one was really good. Someone said with a newborn and lockdown in full swing, the library was a wonderful blessing. Quiet, a sofa rather, sorry, books, a few toys, and the two best librarians in the world. We held a poetry competition. We invited people to write poems about the library, had an excellent response, just really heartwarming. What people feel about the libraries and their experience of libraries and their memories of libraries. We held a birthday card competition for children, and it had just a really difficult to choose a winner. I must say it was really hard. So this one in the middle here, I just wanted to mention. Inside, this little girl wrote, reading a book is like going on a holiday inside your head, which I thought was really lovely. So yeah, that's how we engaged with the public. And then finally, the main part of it was to put on a drama performance about our story. And we collaborated with a local theatre group called Theatre Sans Frontières. And they in turn worked with a group of 10 volunteers from the Queen's Hall Drama Group. And they researched and developed the story for us using the content that we had actually researched for the exhibition, but they also went and interviewed former librarians, and they did a lot of research in the British newspaper archive as well. And they put together the play. It was made up of chapters telling our story right from the beginning until the present time. It was really excellent, and there was music and song and yeah, a lot of performance. So we're hoping to actually put on more shows later this year. Last year we had 4 in Bellingham, Rothbury, Allendale, and Hortwhistle, and this year we hope to move it to other parts of the county. So that, in a nutshell, is what we did with our project. It was just a really wonderful experience. Just getting a lot of feedback about how much people love libraries, and not just us, all libraries, and really sentimental and nostalgic for an exercise for us to go through. But it was really wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks, Kate. It's really interesting. So lovely to hear, the background of the story and capturing people's memories and things like that. A really fantastic project. There's a few questions already in the chat. So how long did the research take?
We had about 3 months from the time we got funding until the time we had to yeah, to put the exhibition together. It wasn't full time. We had two people working on the project, and they probably spent, I'd say, a day a week doing the research.
And when you said that you applied for funding, was that with obviously the support of senior management, just in terms of
Yes.
time pressures and doing the everyday job and
Yeah.
doing something that's valuable? It must have been
Yeah.
very hard to get the balance, but there was obviously buy-in and support at a more
Yeah.
senior level for this. Yes.
Yeah.
Have
Yeah.
other
Definitely.
public libraries done similar things? I've not spotted anything in terms of
No.
researching their history. It seems like
Yeah.
quite a unique thing to do.
Um, In fact, when we were successful with Arts Council funding, they actually put us in touch with, I think it was Sussex Libraries, and I had a Zoom call chat with them about what we were planning on doing, and they were wanted to do something very similar, but we're taking a slightly different approach. They were going to get funding to get more digital equipment for their libraries. So they were using yeah, that as an opportunity to improve what they were offering, really. But we were very keen to do the thing of looking back rather, and actually yeah, looking at the history of our service.
Did it give you any insight into your records management over the years, dare I ask?
Well, yeah, yeah. Or sadly, there was quite a bit that we found that is still uncatalogued in the archives. So, but that actually was quite fun because then we kept discovering these things that we didn't know were there.
So does this mean members of staff are still sifting through and having
Yeah,
a little, yeah, I can imagine once you've opened the
yeah.
can of worms, it must be
I
very hard
know.
to put the lid on
Yeah,
it, knowing that there's some lovely undiscovered treasures that will tell all sorts of stories.
yeah,
Yeah, Pandora's box is what Susie's put in the
yeah.
chat. Very much.
Absolutely.
So yeah, there's some comments in the chat about I think we might have found our next thing to promote in terms of a visit if we can do some promotion once your performances are
Yeah,
locked down, and
absolutely. Oh, that's an excellent idea. Yeah.
that might be nice to close that off depending on the location and where you're thinking. Do you have venues in mind that you think you might be using, or
Um, Possibly the Queen's Hall in Hexham. Um, Also, there's a big project being run in Blythe at the moment. There's a big regeneration project, and they're launching that in August. And there's going to be a new venue in the town centre, and we're hoping to get it put on there. So I'll let you know. I'll keep you
is that
posted.
is
Yeah.
that the Jam Jar? Is that the cinema you're referring to, or is it
Um,
the other one?
I I'm not quite sure what it's. I
What
think
it
it's going to
is?
be called the Pavilion.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, lots of redevelopment going on, which is much needed.
Yeah.
So yes, fantastic. Let me have a little scan through. Yeah, lots of nice positive comments. You'll have to have a little scan through them about, a fantastic way of advocating public libraries and telling the story of their value within communities, which all of us know all of the time, but we need to remind other people sometimes, especially those in charge of funding, etc. So yes, fantastic. Thanks very much, Kate.